You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
I started a new drinking game. On Friday, when they announced certain indictments, I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a drink every time somebody uses the word unprecedented. I don't remember Saturday or Sunday or Monday, but I'm here today. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Oh wow, we got a good house already. We got Triple B, we got Ed, Cool, and John. Good to see all you guys. If you tuned in on Thursday, you'll know I was just a smidge late. I got there right as the show was starting. And I told you guys why, and it's because I got caught up watching a crochet tutorial on soap sacks. And I was as fascinated by what the hell a soap sack was as how easy this looked to be made. But the idea that you make this little crocheted bag to drop your soap in, and then you wash using the baggish part, the crocheted part, to be like a washcloth. So I immediately ordered some cotton yarn because you have to use cotton. And I thought, I need to make these. So today's follow-up, this is a soap sack. I have two, and enough yarn to make some more. So I may try to sell these. So if anybody out there wants my sack, let me know. All right, we're going to go right into the news while Jay's on the board shaking his head. Yeah, we got Jay with us today. Kyle's out there somewhere. We're going to jump into the news. We got the news. We're going to talk about Captain Marvel. I did a rewatch of that last night because of the Secret Invasion trailer. And we're going to do some key issues. Tomorrow, unless Kyle wrangled in the interview that he hasn't said he has, we're going to talk about Blue Beetle, being the new trailer just dropped, get a little history on the character, get you prepared for it while people start talking about Blue Beetle. And on Thursday, of course, we will talk about the latest Mandalorian. So let's jump into the news. We got quite a bit here that do not involve grand juries or people being arrested. We're going to start with James Gunn spoke to Rolling Stone about the upcoming Superman Legacy and what he got out of working with the MCU. Now, he said, I learned so much from making these Guardian movies, but it's not like Superman is going to have exactly the same vibe as a Guardians movie. It's actually quite different. I don't know, I like the Guardians movie. I could see a funny Superman movie. But he said that he does hope that even though he's over at DC now and is kind of in charge of DC, he's their Kevin Feige, well, half of their Kevin Feige, I guess, him and Peter Safran, but he still wants Marvel to do well. He says, to be frank, I think the better Marvel movies do, it's better for DC, and the better DC movies do, it's better for Marvel. When people see bad movies, they don't want to spend more money on seeing more movies. So you want a good movie to happen. I really want Marvel to keep making good movies. Then he talked about how things became a little more difficult after Avengers Endgame. He said there's this worldwide, universe-wide event that happened, and in truth, everybody would just be stark raving mad at that point. So it's hard to write stories in the wake of that, which is why the Guardian movies have been easier, because they're set outside of that a little bit. And of course, they brought up the superhero fatigue that a lot of people talk about. Now, he says there is such thing as superhero fatigue, but it doesn't have anything to do with superheroes. It has to do with the kind of stories they get to be told. And if you lose your eye on the ball, which is character, we love Superman, we love Batman, we love Iron Man, because they're incredible characters that we have in our hearts. And if it becomes just a bunch of nonsense on screen, it gets really boring. But I get fatigued by most spectacle films, by the grind of not having an emotionally grounded story. So he thinks it's not that they're doing superhero movies, and I've never thought superhero was a genre any more than saying a cop movie is a genre, because you can look at Training Day and Police Academy and they're not the same, but they are about cops. And I think you have to look at that way with superhero movies. It's a job within. It's a place to focus the characters, but it's not a genre by itself. You can have sci-fi superhero movies, you can have horror superhero movies, all across the board. But he says when they just become giant spectacles, when it's all about the action and having 120 characters on the screen, is when you start losing it. If you can't boil it down to the characters and getting the audience emotionally connected, the only reason Endgame worked is because of all the films that built up to it. Endgame by itself, if somebody sat down and watched Endgame for the first time, or Infinity War and then Endgame, they may not have the same reaction because they don't have that emotional connection when Cap gets Thor's hammer or when Iron Man sacrifices himself. None of that's built up. So I think that's why Endgame worked, is because of all the previous films. But he's right. When you just make a big spectacle, you don't have the emotional connection, and that is what I think people get tired of. Friend of the show, Pat Shand, had some good news this week. Black Mask graphic novel Destiny New York by Pat Shand and Manuel Pretano is being developed for the small screen by Sony Pictures Television and the team of Tegan and Sarah Quinn. Now, the series and the comics follow Logan, a prophecy kid who grew up attending the elite New York City boarding school Destiny New York for children with magical prophecies. At 12 years old, she faced Logan's a she? Interesting. She faced a cataclysmic crisis and rescued the entire planet, but hardly anyone knows what she did, and since then she's been directionless. There's no prophecy for what Logan's supposed to do with the rest of her life, and she faces a midlife crisis despite only being in her 20s. And when Logan falls for Lilith, the estranged daughter of a mystical crime family, their new love jeopardizes the entire school. It sounds a bit like Romeo and Juliet mixed with Harry Potter. Kind of interesting. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I know that's been a really popular book. We got a new trailer for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse this morning, and it shows Miles Morales' adventures in the multiverse are probably much bigger than we thought. In the first movie, it was kind of kept low, even though we had a few multiple multiverse Spider-Men. This looks much bigger. It's like they took the Sony PS5 game and just took all the costumes, but they're all individual characters. Now, the trailer shows the hero going up against a new threat known as the Spot. And I remember when the Spot debuted, and he had the ability to, travel through dimensional portals through the spots he created. But I guess it's now multi-dimensional portals. When he can open interdimensional portals at will, Miles finds himself the target of other dimensional selves who disagree with his tactics on bringing down the villain. So that's kind of interesting because it seems like they're actually going to be going after him, or at least Miguel seems to be big on it in the trailer. We get our first look at some new variants, including the first official look at Spider-Punk, Spider-Bite, and Ben Reilly, who may end up being the psychiatrist guy. There's also a mention of an Earth 19999 Spider-Man, which I believe is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that's Tom Holland's Spider-Man. The movie will also feature Spider-Man 2099, of course, and Spider-Man from India. There are other fun cameos rumored, but nothing has been confirmed. So, if you hear that the other, if Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, Miss Chen from the Venom movies, those are all rumored, but nothing specific. All right. The Lionsgate's Jack Wick spinoff, The Ballerina, will be hitting theaters June 7th, 2024. Now, the news comes in the wake of John Wick Chapter 4 racking up a current gross of $250 million worldwide, which takes the four-picture franchise to over $833 million worldwide. Ana de Armas will star as an assassin trained in the traditions of the Ruska Roma, with Keanu Reeves, Ian McShane, and Lance Riddick supposed to be coming back. So I'm hoping this is already filmed since Riddick just passed away. Also, Angelica Houston, Gabriel Byrne, Catalina Sandino Moreno, and Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead are all expected to appear. It's being directed by Len Weissman, based off of the script by Shay Haddon, with Basil Iwanek. This is an interesting thing. The Ballerina wasn't written to be part of the John Wick universe. It was a film that was written and put on what they call the blacklist, which are 10 independent, what's the term I want? Where they write a script without a commitment to it. They just, do the script on their own. These are usually 10 scripts a year that people think are really good but haven't been picked up yet. This was on the blacklist a couple of years ago, and there was a bidding war for it, and Lionsgate got it with the idea of attaching it to the John Wick franchise. So again, it wasn't meant to be a John Wick spinoff, but they're making it work, and that's what the rewriting on the script was about. Are we still in for Harry Potter? I don't know what the current status is on that, but there's a long rumored Harry Potter TV series in the works for HBO Max, and it seems to be clear to leap the biggest hurdle in its path to screen as a deal with the book's author, J.K. Rowling, who has creative control over any exploitation of her work. So they're close to a deal with Rollins. Now, Warner Brothers is in talk with Rollins to join the project as a producer, and once she comes on board the project, which is still in the very early stages, it's expected to start looking for a writer. Now, as first reported by Bloomberg, the general idea for this was basically they're going to redo the Harry Potter story. This isn't like exploring a new part of the world or anything like that. They're looking at doing the each book as a season. So it'll be a 7-season series focusing on each book, which is pretty crazy. Hey, Backwoods. So they're going to basically reboot it as a TV series. I think they would be better off if they just moved into another area of the Harry Potter world, because those movies are pretty beloved. So now Warner Brothers CEO David Zaslav has stressed multiple times his focus on franchises, with mining the Harry Potter IP identified as a priority. Now, he's met multiple times with Rowling and has spoken up in support of the author, who has been involved in an ongoing controversy over her comments on transgender issues. So I don't know about poor David Zaslav. He comes in, he's got to deal with one of his major properties, Harry Potter, has a toxic person at the head of it. His other franchise, DC, has two toxic people taking up all the news with uh, Evan.
Ezra Miller and Amber Heard?
Yes, those two, Ezra Miller and Amber Heard. I couldn't get past Ezra's name. And so, yeah, he's got a lot to deal with. And all he wants to do is make money. So, all right, we got one more story to cover. And this has to do with a recent interview Samuel L. Jackson did with Vanity Fair. Now, we did just get a brand new trailer for Secret Invasion that looks pretty freaking amazing. I thought that trailer really looked good, and I can't wait for this one to start. Now, he was out there. Where was he out? I don't remember now. But he was out there, and they asked him about returning to the MCU as Nick Fury. And unlike Nick Fury, who doesn't give any information, Jackson was kind of chatty. First, if you're wondering how the Skrulls go from friendly refugees at the end of Captain Marvel to an infiltrating threat, he says, Fury told the Skrulls they were trying to find them a place to live. He promised them they were going to find them a planet or somewhere they could be. And that's not going so well. This leads, of course, this is out of the, but this is going to lead to a group of extremists who are tired of waiting. They're led by Gravik, played by Kingsley Ben-Adir, who breaks from the faction led by Talos, Ben Mendelsohn, and radicalizes a group of Skrulls to seize the resources they need. Now, in the trailer, we see somebody blowing up a building, and we see Ben Mendelsohn's character of Talos as a human talking to somebody in a museum. Well, that is, well, at least one of them is Gravik, or they take on the look of Gravik. That's Kingsley Ben-Adir. Now, the interview also confirms that Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones, who she will be playing. And while most people seem to think it was going to be Abigail Brand, it's not. She's going to be playing Gaia, who we've sort of met before. She's the daughter of Talos. Jackson says, remember when Ben was there and his wife and his daughter? She's the little Skrull girl all grown up. She's his daughter. And she's part of the Resistance now. Now, the series is said to be inspired by the Cold World espionage thrillers of John le Carre and more recent shows like Homeland or The Americans. Now, that kind of fits in with Captain America, the Winter Soldier, giving that kind of 70s spy thriller feel, which we know worked really well with Winter Soldier. Now, the series is going to drop on June 21st on Disney Plus. And this is making a lot of people wonder how many Disney Plus series we're actually going to get this year. Originally, there had been talk of 3 or 4. There was going to be Echo and Secret Invasion and Loki Season 2 and What If Season 2. There was also possibilities of Ironheart or Agatha Coven of Chaos. But now it seems to be we're going to, the only guarantees we're getting are Secret Invasion and Loki Season 2. So how much has the shuffling around of things over at Marvel? I know they've been talking about slowing it down, spending more time on projects, but this seems like it's slowing down a lot because we haven't gotten a new Marvel project since, the Guardians special in November. So that's going to be like 6 months between projects. that seems like a lot. I mean, we did get the Ant-Man movie, but 6 months between Disney Plus projects seems like a lot. So, all right, guys, let's go ahead. We'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about Captain Marvel. Be right back.
Did you know that every experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit ComicShopLocator.com to find a store near you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We got a great lineup today. We have in stores this week where myself, Kyle, and Jay are going to be talking about the latest books coming out. And we got some cool books. There's a new Matt Kent horror book called Hairball. There's Where Monsters Lie. We've got The Witcher, Mosley. I mean, some really good stuff. It was a good week for comics. And we're going to be talking about them. Jay won't be the only one positive about the books. And then after that is Minute to Skim It with the crew over at Space Cadet going through the latest books as well. Though they tend to hit some of the books we don't. So you want to watch both. I recommend watching both. And after that is Mint Hunter. So normally Country Road Comics is on Tuesday nights, but he is going to be moving to Sunday. So no Country Road Comics this evening, but that's our lineup. Please hit the thumbs up button, the like and subscribe and all those things, and share the links. Get some more people over here. Let's make this a party. All right. We're going to jump into Captain Marvel, 2019's Captain Marvel, which of course starred Brie Larson, Samuel L. Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, Jude Law, Annette Bening, Lee Pace, Lashana Lynch, Clark Gregg, Gemma Chan, Jaimin Hansu. I mean, it had a really good cast. Rune Temte, is that who I think that is? Sorry, going off on a tangent there. But no, it had a really good cast. It introduces us to a young Monica Rambeau, who, of course, is going to be part of the upcoming The Marvels, and she was part of WandaVision as an adult. Yeah. So what happened to this movie? It did star a cat or a flurkin, and a Blockbuster video. It did. Um, there were some really good things in this movie. There's some things I really liked, but there was also a lot of flat moments. And I've been thinking about this movie a lot because I don't hate it, not even close. You know, you look over on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's one of the flipped ones where the critics actually liked it and the fans hated it. The critic score on Rotten Tomatoes is 79%, which is not bad. That's a pretty decent score. The audience score is 45%. Now, when I see something like this, and you know about review bombing and stuff like that, there has been this kind of anti-equality movement where fans get upset if there's a female-led movie or a person led by people of color. And I don't understand that, especially on a character like Captain Marvel, who has been Carol Danvers in the comics for quite a bit of time. I mean, Marvel died in the 80s. I remember reading The Death of Captain Marvel, one of the first Marvel graphic novels. Yeah, it had to be in the 80s. So, I don't know why there's this uproar against the character. Now, is it against the actress? I don't have a problem with the actress at all. I think she's cool. I've seen her. I've seen her on social media. I've seen her in other movies. So then it's got to come down to the story. Yeah, Jay says, I just didn't like the movie. I actually like Brie Larson in most things I've seen her in, but I didn't like her as Captain Marvel. Is that true, Dan, or is it just a media narrative? Terminator 1 and 2, Aliens, some of the people's fave movies with heroines. But see, all of those are older movies. The whole review bombing stuff, those were all really kind of before internet and review and boards like that, where they could actually. I don't think it's a majority of people. I think it's a minority, but it's a minority given voice by social media. I think that the detractors get a megaphone now. So, and it's the loudest voice is the one that makes it seem like they're the majority. But when they can go on and do 17 different reviews, they can do 17 different reviews that are negative to bring a movie down, then that's gonna have an effect. And it does seem to be driven by now maybe it's they didn't like her in that role, but again, I think it comes down to the actual story they were telling. I think they made a decision, and that decision was that Carol Danvers was not going to have her memory through most of the movie. And in doing so, it neutered her personality in a lot of ways. she got to make a few quips back and forth with Samuel L. Jackson. But she's didn't really get to have an emotional range. We didn't get to meet her from a point of view of somebody overcoming. Instead, we meet her where she's incredibly powerful and very stoic because, like I said, she doesn't have a past. So her personality was kind of reined in. Was that necessary for the movie? No. I think they could have gone a lot of different directions. I think the writers made a choice. Marvel made a choice. And again, it comes also down to, the story they wanted to tell. You look at Ragnarok and you look at Love and Thunder. Everybody was about the same, same cast, same crew. So what was different was the story they wanted to tell and how they presented it. Ragnarok was greatly, regaled, and Love and Thunder seems to be reviled. Well, Leonard says Carol went from Miss Marvel, Binary, Warbird, Miss Marvel, then finally the Captain. They didn't know what to do with Ben Reilly either. Scarlet Spider, Jackal, Spider again, and now Chasm. Yeah, that is the problem. That when you get a character that bounces around. I mean, Carol Danvers actually appeared in the second time we saw Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers has been around a very long time and has as much horrible stuff done to her as you could in comics. The memory loss is one of the worst writer tropes, and this is your protagonist, tough sell. Exactly. It's rare you can do that. I think of the movie Memento, maybe the only one to really pull it off well. I think the other problem is there's an old writing adage called save the cat. And that is that early in a movie, you need to do something to make your character likable. And it could be something as simple as they saved a cat. Something that humanizes them, something that makes them identifiable to the reader or to the viewer. But see, they didn't do it early. They did it late. They needed to show us Carol. They could have flipped this. They could have started with Carol and not Monica, but Monica's mom, Rambeau, racing to what is her name? That's going to bug me now. Maria, racing to the airport. Then you could have seen her going up with whatever they ended up calling her. She had a different name, but the original Marvel in the jet, and them fighting and being shot down. And they could have made the whole scene where she blows up the engine very vague. So you don't know who it is that comes up to her, but she does that. And then we switch to Hala and her being, it's 5 years later, and her is now a part of the Kree, stuff like that, where we don't know exactly what happened. That would have given us something more to connect with her. The fact that she was alien and they didn't really give us anything to connect with. So had they done that out of sequence, like if they wanted to, they could recut that film with everything they shot. And I think it would make it better. just by moving the scene with Marvel and being shot down in the thing as the opening. That brings a lot more action to the opening. And it just makes it more interesting. And then you could condense down some of the middle stuff that you don't need as much. So yeah, that's how I would do it. And the fact that you're talking about shapeshifters, as much as I'd miss Dan, I wish either Marvel or DC would hire him. Thank you, Jay. But yeah, that's what I would do, is I would move that up. And then the fact that you're dealing with shapeshifters, you don't know who shot them down. You don't know if she's in a situation that is real or if she's with shapeshifters. It would really shake things up and make for a much more interesting movie. I don't think it changes. It wasn't Brie Larson as it was played. I think she did what they asked her to do. Yeah, that's how I would change it around. Leonard, I've actually got a video on my own channel where I break down how I would do a Fantastic Four movie that would basically be set in the 1950s. So, yeah, I would love to do a Fantastic Four movie. But so yeah, that's my thing with the movie is I don't think they gave us a reason to care about Carol until near the end, and in doing so, it's what brought the movie down. I think there's some good stuff in it. I think Brie Larson is fine. I think moving forward, Dan Wick 70 is my personal YouTube channel. But yeah, that's the bottom line on that is I don't think they gave her a way to connect to the audience. And doing so, they made people didn't care. It became a flat movie, If you can't connect to characters, and it goes back to what James Gunn said, if you can't connect to your characters, then no one's going to care about the movie. It's going to become boring. And I think that's what happened. Now, it started getting a little better when Nick Fury was in it, because we know Nick Fury, and we get to see him as younger, but yeah, for someone who didn't know who she was, she came off very entitled. Yes. And again, I think that's because of the whole indoctrination that she got with the Kree and stuff like that. And I'm curious to see what they do in the next movie. Because they can't be blind to those criticisms. But they're going to put her in a different scenario where she's now tied to Miss Marvel through the bands or whatever. Monica Rambeau is involved and she's not happy with her. So there's going to be more of a connection. And she can play it more as herself than as this indoctrinated person with no memory. So that's where I think the character has potential. It is one of the weaker movies in the Marvel Universe. I don't think it's the worst. I would still put Love and Thunder below it. But I think, like I said, I think re-editing it, you could salvage it. So maybe I need to find me an editor and see if we could do the Wickline cut. Just change it around. All the same footage, just move it around a bit. Oh, it's Dan Wickline 1. I'm sorry. That's the link in the chat now is to mine. Any speculation as to the Kang issue with the actor's legal troubles? I enjoyed your Lex Luthor video essay, by the way. Well, thank you. If you like the Lex Luthor one, there's also a one on the Riddler in the similar vein of doing the psychology of the Riddler. My thought on Jonathan Majors, is I think Marvel will hold out for as long as they can to see if this clears up. But once they have it, I think everybody is now gun shy of reacting too quickly because of Johnny Depp, stuff like that, and also what happened with James Gunn. So I think they're going to hold off, and they may pause some of the things that he's involved in, but they do have Loki coming out, and he's in that. But I think if it comes out that, he's convicted, or it comes out that this is true, if he doesn't get his name cleared, I think they'll just recast and move forward. They've done it. I know they're not going to want to do it, but they've done it. And, so it really comes down to if he can clear his name. Hi, Kenneth. Yeah. So if Majors can clear his name, then I think it's going to keep moving forward. If he can't, and it comes out against him, then they will recast. They'll just find another actor, and they'll probably say, when he got pulled into the quantum verse, it scarred him. He's got a new look, or they won't even mention it, or they'll do something like with Rhodes in Iron Man, where he comes in and he goes, in Iron Man 2, he goes, yeah, it's me, get over it, because they changed actors. So I don't see Marvel hemming and hawing as much as DC has about Ezra Miller. I think the problem with Ezra Miller is that the movie's supposed to be really good, and they've sunk a fortune into it, and replacing a guy who's played not one but two characters in the movie could be really difficult. Now, what they're going to do about Loki, I think they'll probably go forward with Loki as is and already have Major's role in it. And there's no guarantee he plays every version of Kang in it, because some of what I'm hearing is that they might jump around, but to different variations of Kang, so it could be different actors. We shall see. All right, let's go ahead and we'll take our second break. We'll come back and we'll talk some key issues involving Captain Marvel. Be right back.
Comic Collectibles is here for you every Wednesday with AR Comics for two very important reasons: to sell you rare, one-of-a-kind comics that you'll love, and to confuse AR with old man talk. You see, Rex and John are, how should I put this, ancient as the roots of the mountains. So every week, Rex and John fill in AR in yet another area of pop culture that he missed because he's too young, just didn't have the time, or just really doesn't care about. It's a real public service they provide. Come buy some super rare and unique comics, while old men explain long-dead sci-fi shows to a younger man making that confused puppy face. Every Wednesday from 6 to 8 Eastern with Rex, John, and AR Comics. Comic Collectibles on The Experience. Comic culture and sales.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Go follow The Experience on TikTok at @the_EXP1 or scan the QR code on the screen. Our TikTok is like everywhere else we are, except you only have to deal with us for a minute. Seems like a win-win to me. Do you remember what it was like when you were a little kid and you got a letter in the mail? Now imagine that letter was filled with information about your favorite shows, pop culture questions, links to things you're going to want to see later, and even sneak peeks at upcoming programming here on The Experience. That's what the EXP mailing list is. Every week, we send you sneak peeks, information, and all of the relevant links for all of the shows you want to see. Sign up now on our website or scan the QR code that's on your screen right now.
everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show. Over in chat right now, I had Jay share. That's the direct link to the Fantastic Four video I did, but I'm going to warn you guys. This was right as the pandemic was starting. I had cut my hair off and I had dyed it blue. It's a different look for me. And at this point, it looked kind of grayish blue in that light. So just a warning, it looks different. All right, let's go through some Captain America comics that might be good to pick up, especially with Secret Invasion coming and then the Marvels. We're going to start off with, had to go all the way back to the first appearance of the first original Captain Marvel. And that was Marvel Superheroes number 12. It's also the first appearance of Jan Rog, the bad guy in the movie. High end on this is going to be about $275, about $65 for a decent copy, maybe $25 for a Thrasher. The interesting thing is, Carol Danvers appears in the very next issue, Marvel Superheroes number 13. And her first appearance, comes in at a high of $1,800. You can pick up a middle one for about $170 and about $55 for the low end on this one.
Dan, I spent the last 40 minutes or so digging through my short boxes trying to find. I have most of these books in my personal collection, and I got 3 boxes left, and you're like, okay, we're going to do these books now, and I wasn't able to find them. So they've got to be in the last 3 boxes.
You would think, yes.
But this was the first Captain Marvel book I ever bought. Like when I was hunting Captain Marvel. Super hard to come by, but if you can get it in that mid-range grade, it's a super fun book to read.
Yeah, and that's introducing the Kree Sentry. So, all right, moving on to the next one. We've got Captain Marvel number 16. This is when he got his own series. This is the first appearance of the blue and red costume. Now this one goes for about $55 on the high end, 15 in the middle, 5 on the low. Now, so you don't see the red and blue on here, but he gets it inside. The red and blue appears on the cover of the next one. All right, now comes the big thing, the Marvel graphic novel number 1, The Death of Captain Marvel. Marvel wasn't really doing graphic novels before this. They're not what we think of as a graphic novel now. They're more magazine-sized. And this is also, the New Mutants were introduced in this series of graphic novels, as was God Loves, Man Kills, the Star Slammers, a lot of really great books. And this goes for about $75 on the high end, $20 in the middle, $8 on the low end. Or if you check out Dynamic Forces, I know they have a copy signed by Jim Starlin, and it was his file copy that they're selling. It's going to be a little more on the higher end, but if you really want a piece of something unique. All right, then we go to Miss Marvel number 1. This is Carol Danvers' first appearance as Miss Marvel, her first time taking on a costume. 130 on the high end, 40 in the middle, 12 in the low. Hey, Kenneth, this isn't the costume most people know her from. This next one is Miss Marvel number 20. Now, this is the first appearance of the black costume with the yellow bolt and the red sash. And this one is pretty easy to pick up. It's only $20 on the high end. So you can get this for about $8 in the middle and maybe $2. And when I say high end, those are usually the graded copy stuff like that. But the high end stuff, if you can find one that's not graded, you can get it for about $20. And then she starts going all over the place. In Uncanny X-Men number 164, Carol Danvers became binary. And here you can pick it up for about $45 on the high end, 12 in the middle, and 4 at the low end. Now she would go on to be Warbird, and then take the name of Miss Marvel again, but then eventually become Captain Marvel in an odd place, Avenging Spider-Man number 9. Now, this one's going for about $45 on the high end, $12 for a median copy, and about $4 for the low end. Now, that covers Captain Marvel, but the first appearance of the Skrulls, since they're important, they're coming up in Secret Invasion. This is Fantastic Four #2. They were basically the second villain they faced, and I believe it ends with Mr. Fantastic hypnotizing them into believing they're cows and leaving them in a field to graze. High end on this one's going to be about $9,300. You're still going to pay about $3,700 in the middle. Might be able to pick up a Thrasher copy for about $750. Now, the first appearance of the Supreme Intelligence and Ronan the Accuser are the same issue. These are Fantastic Four #65. It's a little more reasonable. You get a really good copy for about $315. Medium range is about $90, so you could probably find a decent copy out there. $30 from the low end, so it's valuable, but still obtainable. And then, of course, what everybody's talking about, the start of the Kree-Skrull War. This was a 9-part series that ran the Avengers. It started in Avengers #89, and you could pick that up on the high end for about $75, $18 in the middle, and $5 on the low end. So that are, yeah. So yep, the Kree-Skrull War started right there. What's funny is I don't remember that cover very well. If I own a comic, I pretty much remember the cover. So I know I don't own this one, but I don't remember seeing it before either, before I started doing the research for this.
This is the hardest Kree-Skrull War book to find of the 9.
Yeah.
There are some later on in the series that are considered major Avengers keys that are part of the Kree-Skrull War, first appearances of characters or first time characters join the Avengers that would go on to be movie Avengers.
Yeah.
But this one is one that in the 30 years I've been collecting, I think I've only ever had 1 or 2, and I know I don't have a copy of it at the moment.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who the cover artist is on this. It looks like a Buscema. What do you think, Kyle?
I don't remember off the top of my head who the artist was on this book. If you give me half a second, I can tell you. But so this was it was Roy Thomas, Sal Buscema pencils, inks by Sam Granger. I don't see a specific cover artist listed, so it would be art by Sal Buscema and Sam Rosen.
You know how I tell Buscema art? The mouth.
Well, and he did a lot of the lined shading, the dragged line shading.
Yeah.
On his covers.
Look at Quicksilver's mouth and Captain Marvel's mouth.
You know the other way you can tell, Dan?
Huh.
Look under Scarlet Witch.
Didn't see that.
Yeah.
Nice catch.
Well, I always look in the bottom right and left hand corners because that's what
I do too.
That's where guys like Rich Buckler and a lot of that era guys would sign, would put their mark. But Sal would just throw it wherever it worked and wherever you would never notice it, and so you felt bad for not seeing it.
This feels like a Kirby layout, though.
Well, it does have that Kirby crackle thing going for it there on the left side or the right side of the page.
It does, and the exploding out of energy, and the awkward angle, the Dutch angle.
Yeah, no, it was it was Sal probably trying to do his best, Jack Kirby.
Yep. I don't think Sal gets enough credit. A lot of people remember John Buscema, and they don't really talk much about Sal as much as he deserves.
It's true. It's interesting this run of books, Dan, because I don't currently have a copy of this one, but I've owned several. The only one of the books in your list that I've not had ever was the Fantastic Four #2. At other times, all of these have passed through my collection. A lot of times what I do, and we talked about this a little bit last week, is I'll buy a low-end copy and then have my collection filled out, and then as I find a better copy, sell the low-end copy to pick up a better copy. use some of the money that I make from selling a comic to buy that same comic in better condition, which is why I don't have an Avengers 89 right now. So it's one of those kind of, that's the only one I've never owned from the list today, but it's one that I've been hunting probably now for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Even like I'll buy a cover off copy just so I can say I have it.
JD, you say Sal is your quintessential Hulk artist, and I can totally see that. I really like Dale Keown's work on him, but Sal is, you kind of think about, that's the thing is there's a lot of characters when you think about them, there's a certain person's art. With Batman, I think of Jim Lee a lot, but I also think of like Jim Aparo or Neil Adams. But yeah, and some of them are so drastically different, but the Hulk is probably the one that goes through the biggest amount of changes when you look at the artists who worked on it for a long time. I mean, John Byrne's version is very different from Buscema's, different from Keown's, different from McFarlane's. Mignola was on the book for a little while. Hulk is one of those characters that gets drastically changed when different artists come in. But Sal is probably one of the ones that a lot of people think of when they think of the Hulk.
Dan, something else that wasn't on your list, but it might be worth checking out for people. Meet the Skrulls #1 from 2019. It's one of those kind of newer series, so we don't really know in terms of how collectible it will be, but it does have Gaia, who is going to be the Emilia Clarke character. It's their first appearances in Meet the Skrulls #1.
Okay.
Right now, average market on that one is like $10 to $15.
Good tip. Leonard says the only artist I didn't take to was Jeff Purvis, especially after McFarlane and Larson. You know who I would love to see on a Hulk book regularly? And this is a personal thing because I love the guy's art and I've known him for years. I would love to see Tone Rodriguez on the Hulk. I think he could do some pretty amazing pages. So, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up there, pass it over to In Stores This Week, where Kyle, Jay, and I will be right back. So flip over to there, and we'll tell you about some new comics. See you later.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.